And another week or two have gone by. Welcome to another edition of Keene No Spin. I'm Randy Filio, I think.
And I am Chris Coates.
Yes, you are, and getting caught up in the sports. So we'll just wait about 15 to 20 minutes till he's done.
Okay, I'm
done
better now. Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow.
No, we were just
talking.
I sometimes the music gets me going and I start singing a little bit.
Rocks and rolls.
Yeah.
And then you realize.
And then it's when it's about, you have to time it just right before you're just like, hi, how are you? So, all right, we're back.
We are.
So another 2 weeks have gone by. Nothing really's happened in the city since then, right?
Nothing.
You guys are within your budget cycle.
We are. It's it's well, especially with the finance committee. And you've been on finance committee. I've been on finance committee before. It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's time consuming for the whole council, but especially if you're one of the 5 members of the finance committee, it's pretty much a full time job for a month. But yeah, it's it's coming up for a public hearing here in a week, and
now there's 2 public hearings this time around. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
One at the beginning and one right before the public hearing.
Yeah, that's the plan. And next year we'll probably tweak it a little bit more. Just I mean, nobody shows. Unfortunately, very few people show up to public hearings. Anyhow, maybe if you have 2, they'll show up more. But whatever, the more transparent we are, the better. I have no problem with it. If people say they couldn't make it to one public hearing, then maybe they can make it to the other one. But it's usually not all that well intended. And usually, as you know, Chris, when people show up to public hearings on the budget, usually it's because they want something increased, not decreased. It's usually something specific that affects them, and that's usually the case. I would say 8 out of 10 that'll speak at a public hearing want an increase in a certain item, and maybe 2 out of 10 generically just want it cut.
And a lot of times it's outside agencies. When a lot of times out of a $60 million budget, what is it? What is your budget total right this year? You got the Citizens Guide right there,
I
right?
did. You know what's funny? I'm glad I brought that because I had my budget book and I had it sitting on my. Let's take a look here. You just keep talking, Chris.
No, I bet I'll be surprised if it's not in there because is it that the $40 million doesn't include certain things, right?
That is correct. There's the current revenue proposed budget is $40,789,000. What's $40 million among friends, right?
Right.
And just under $26 million of that is funded by property tax. And so, I mean, for those of you watching us, you can stop by City Hall and get. Where's the camera there? Get one of these. It's just a basic little brochure, and it kind of tells where your tax dollars go for the budget. Yeah. It's not complicated. It's mathematic. There's a lot of pictures in here, and makes it easy reading for even people like me.
Yeah. Well, for somebody that wants to go to the hearing and doesn't really have an understanding of what they want to say right then, they may have an idea, but this gives you a little bit more factual information. Yep.
And it tells where. Public health, transportation, economic development. It kind of gives just a basic synopsis of where your tax dollars go. And speaking of tax dollars, which is kind of a good segue into something you and I have talked about, Chris, and something I wrote a letter to the Sentinel that was in today. And
you mean the revenue issue that you're talking about?
Yeah, the revenue issue with rooms and meals tax.
Yep.
Now, to Chris's credit, he's brought this up a couple of times. And I did a little research on it and wrote a letter to the council and to the city manager and to the mayor and anybody that would listen. Basically, in 1967, the rooms and meals tax was enacted. And as you pointed out, it's supposed to be 60% to the state, 40% to municipalities.
Right.
Like, counties, cities, towns. And since then, it is now down to the state collecting 79% and sending us 21%. And it's all excuses why they've changed that formula. And the excuse really is because the state wants to balance their budget, but they're balancing their budget off the backs of the cities and towns. It's pretty simple. That's what it is. They had the money there, and they can take it. And ironically, as I was writing this letter, I was listening to WKBK a few days ago. Paul Schering was interviewing our Governor Sununu. And it had to do with the topic of marijuana revenues that we don't have because it's not legal here. But Paul Schering was asking, well, wouldn't it make sense to legalize it because look at all the revenues that we could bring in from it? And the governor said, we don't need those revenues. we have a $200 million surplus up in Concord. We have all the money we need. And that fried my behind, because you're sitting on a $200 million surplus, but you're only giving back 21% of rooms and meals tax to the communities. You're hijacking the money that's owed us. And so...
Well, I mean, and another example of that is the Medicaid rate that they established at the state, the Medicaid reimbursement rate for nursing homes, and we're number last, I like to say.
Yeah.
And
number way behind.
And not even close. And they put it in that place because that's how much money they have to spend. So if it should be that a daily rate of pay for a nursing home is $250, we're getting anywhere between $168 and $172 a day. What does that mean? That means the rest of those monies that we're falling short on has to be covered by who? The taxpayer. And the reason that they can't go higher it's because they don't have the revenue. They don't, and that's just a clean, easy example. But there's the highway fund. There's you just go down the list, and there's all kinds of things where we're clearly underfunding it because we don't have the revenue in place to meet the need, one. Or two, if you look at public education, secondary education, we are last in funding, and people are passing us, and we're going to start feeling. I don't get it. I don't understand why. I get, we're fortunate to live in Cheshire County, and I hope that Cheshire County stays this way for years to come, in that we have leaders in this community that understand the importance and how it all fits together. If you continue to, push up, they are saying that they're freezing the college rates this year, in the university system rates, in the community college rates, right? Well, but that's not the answer, because at some point it's going to go up. Yep. And at some point it's a lot of it's because we're not funding it, and so
Correct.
you turn around and you get bit in the butt by us doing this, and then they complain about an aging community, an aging state, and people leaving the state, the workforce leaving the state, when we do have high-paying, quality jobs in the region that people could stay here if they chose to. A lot of them, they choose it. Even in Manchester, they're going through the same thing. They can't say it's just, well, in Keene, for young people, there's nothing here. Well, in Manchester, they've got more of a city life there. Nashville, Portsmouth has more, and they're running through the same issues that we're running through, and those places that they can go and hang out and are only a short drive away if you're in Manchester, Nashville, and Portsmouth. So I don't buy this whole thing, but what I do buy is that young kids go, and it's proven that young kids, when they're in college, they go wherever they go, and then if they go into college, that they stay there to live.
No question. So I bumped into the city manager yesterday also. And
You say, excuse me?
excuse me.
Yeah.
Actually, it was at the, we'll segue to that later on, the downtown project that MEDC is talking about. But anyhow, the city's all on board, obviously, because, very aware that we're getting shafted out of millions of dollars. But also, not only I don't only want this to go to the governor and the state legislature, I want all the other communities involved in this too, because we're all in this together. If Keene goes in this alone, they'll just push back. But
well, there's those crazies over there, and why do we have to listen to them?
Exactly.
Because we're rational.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're holding millions of dollars that's supposed to come to us.
Yeah.
And the only, as you said, Chris, their logic for not sending us the money that they're supposed to send us is, oh, well, we don't have it. But now they do have it, they still don't send it.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, well, if we send it to you, then we won't have it. So it infuriates me when I hear voices coming out of Concord saying how great they've done on their budget when they haven't. It's just they constantly, as you know, they roll the responsibility downhill to the communities. And what does it really mean? Property taxes. Because in New Hampshire, especially communities, we're limited with revenues. I mean, we can't, because it's a home rule state, we just can't find revenues. You rely on the state. And the rooms and meals tax is a huge revenue. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, I'm not naive. I don't expect the state to go, oh, okay, here's a check.
Yeah.
But my goal is to keep the pressure on. I'm not going to let up on this one. Like I said, we need other communities involved. We just got to keep the pressure on. And as I pointed out, it's not a partisan issue because we've had Democrats and Republicans in the gubernatorial office and in the state legislature, in the Senate. So it's been a bipartisan problem that they don't send the monies that's owed to us. So,
yeah. I mean, all right, logic would say that we have the most regressive tax out there in the property tax, right? Because you
Correct.
can have one person that's making one salary and another person living in this house next door making 10 times that salary, but they're paying the same level of taxes because that's where they live.
Yep.
And
Especially if
that's the
somebody
zone,
retires.
that's the zone they're in, and right. And if they're on a fixed income, that's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
But
try to change the tax system in New Hampshire.
so you talk income tax, and there's pushback there because people think, one, it won't help with the tax; it'll just add. People just use that added money for other things, blah blah. And they're not 100% wrong, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It means that we need to be accountable, and you need to elect people that are going to be accountable to utilizing the money in a way that makes sense. And if not, then you kick them out of office. It's our responsibility if we go down this road, if we were. And then you talk about a sales tax, and then you get the border towns, of which we're in a county that's a border town, that would say, what are you doing? No, that hurts us economically.
Yep.
All right, so then what? Do you do a luxury tax? Do you do something where if I purchase something that's over $10,000, there's a 2%, tax against that, or something. There's a lot of ways we can look at that. And if you're not going to do any of that, then do you look at marijuana and casinos? Because they generate some level of revenue. And we do have a revenue issue, not a spending issue. I don't care what anybody says. I've been involved in way too many budget process, and I've watched what Concord has done to, all they're doing is they're just passing it down to us on so many different levels that we just continue to get hammered and hammered again and again and again. And so I believe we all do our due diligence when it comes to the budget. The county's is 0.73. Yours is standing at 1.5.
Yeah.
And it could be lower, it could be higher when everything's said and done. We don't know
Well,
yet.
it'd be lower if the state sent the revenues that are owed to us. We could at least be at zero, or possibly, set it back a little bit. But, as you just pointed out, Chris, so the state basically just says we can't do anything. But this is part of what my letter is about. It's like, look, send us the money that's owed to us, and then you worry about your budget.
Yeah.
If you get a shortfall in Concord, then you've got a revenue problem. It's not a spending problem. You're getting away. Concord is getting away with it by shortchanging the communities. It's like, my argument is, look, fund us how you're supposed to fund us, and if you've got a shortfall, then you go find it.
Right.
Do
your due diligence.
Don't have a shortfall and pull the rug out for underneath cities and towns and say, oh, look, we just balanced our budget.
Their inability to do what's right by the towns and the cities have turned neighbors against neighbors when it comes to funding special ed.
Yep.
Or a
Education
child
budgets.
that's in needs, because they're I blame the feds too. If you make a commitment, stick to the commitment. I mean, if you're paying into the retirement system for years and years and years at 35%, and then you lowered it, and then you went to zero, where's the responsibility there? And so at some point, people need to start stepping up and voicing their concern. It's got to be a grassroots process.
Yep.
I mean, you guys are taking your stand, but just because you put together a letter to the governor, it shouldn't stop there.
It's not going to.
It should be. To be honest, I would think it would be worthwhile to bring community members that have interest in this type of conversation together to really outline on a bigger level. And I know that the commissioners are working on a letter to get out there too. Across the board, I think the Board of Education should do the same thing, and really start having this dialogue with multiple communities to say, how do we start voicing our concern? We have what I believe is one of the hardest working state senators in New Hampshire and JCon. I think every time I see him, he's everywhere. He's thoughtful and knowledgeable with with whatever it is that is going on. He's willing to listen and change his opinion. So we have somebody that we can utilize as a voice. We have in the House multiple representatives that are more than willing to take a leadership role in this, and then at the same time, the selectmen in the small towns need to really understand this. They are so busy with they aren't set up like the city of Keene. They aren't set up like the county. They aren't set up like the school district.
Right.
They are buried. They have a town administrator that has multiple hats that person wears, and so they don't have the opportunity. It's our responsibility.
Yep.
And I think that I think this is the beginning of a conversation that should go broader than just your letter, because I think that's just the tip of the iceberg.
It is the tip of the iceberg, and that was my intent. The intent of the letter, and one of the reasons I wrote a letter to the Sentinel, was because from talking to people, I'm guesstimating probably 90 to 95% of our constituents out there have no idea how much the state has shortchanged us.
Yeah.
That they don't know that. They hear how the state's got a surplus, they balance their budget, oh great, and then they say, well, what's going on with the cities and towns.
Yeah.
So it is an educational process. In talking to the city manager and the city clerk, they had asked if I wanted to get that letter in sooner so it could go up before this year's budget is implemented. And I said no, because it's not going to matter anyhow. It's not like all of a sudden they're going to say, oh, here's your 40%. I want it to stay out there. I want it to go to the committee, the dialogue tomorrow night, and it's not just going to be a quick letter, then forget about it. I'm going to have this on the table for a while.
Yeah.
And what you just mentioned about Senator Khan, city manager has been in contact with him. So it's not like nothing's going on. It's just more, I wanted the dialogue to be more public. Right. I want if constituents aren't pressuring Concord and just a few people in Keene are, like you said, they go, there goes Keene again.
Yeah.
We need everybody on board. The governor just can't get away with saying, I've got a $200 million surplus, everything's good. He just can't get away with that, and I have no intentions of letting him get away with it, anymore. It's just too easy for them to renege on their responsibilities.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes. I have no intentions of letting up on it. The chips will fall where they may, But we need other communities involved. We can't go this alone. They'll just, like you said, they just look at Keene. It's like, will you guys just go away, please?
Right. So and then because once we get done educating our area, then we need to, we in the counties, we have a relationship with the Connecticut River counties. Mm-hmm. All right. So we should look to Sullivan. We should have that conversation with Sullivan. We should look to Grafton. We should go up to Coos County. I mean, Coos County just happens to have really one major industry up there, and that failed, and that is the wood, the logging, the paper mills, all that.
Now all they have there's a prison.
Yeah, and so, but all the rest of us, we have a bigger foundation of strength, and industrial strength to work off of, but it's eroding, and a lot of it's eroding because of the inability for the county and the legislature to look at the bigger picture and look at the long term. I mean, I don't understand. And I know the answer to when I say this, but it doesn't mean you can't try to put something in place. You can never hold another body that hasn't been elected yet to financial numbers so it's really a 2-year thing. But why can't you have a bigger vision that, like with the university system and with community ed, that over the next 5 years you'll add $10 million a year to those programs, and so or even $5 million each, so it's $25 million in over 5 years. Now I know somebody will say that you can only do what's in the biennial plan or budget, and I agree with that. But it doesn't mean you can't have that. That's our hope. Now that now that we're working on the next biennial, we're going to follow what the last 2 years were like and put in again another 5 and 5 and 5 and 5 here, and then when everything's said and done, you've at least you've raised it by $25 million on those two, or just focus on one and try to get the other one later, or whatever it may be. But you have to think in small steps. I mean, I think the increase in the wage, what is it, the starting wage, what is
Minimum wage?
minimum wage, thank you. I think that they had the right idea. I don't know if they went too big. I think they wanted to get it up. No, not the minimum wage. I'm sorry. Restoring monies into the retirement system.
Oh, okay.
And they had talked about going to 15%.
Right.
Maybe only get to 2.5 or 5% the first year, and then the next year another 2.5 or 5%. Build it up so that you can start figuring out what the financial hurt is going to be, and then see if you can continue to have that grow within the budget systems. Maybe I'm wrong in my thinking, but we have to help the towns and the city. Where our taxes are what they are, and at the same time I say all that, I wonder if we really are overtaxed. Because when I look at other states, I see that that I know that I would be paying more taxes in other states because of their incomes, their sales, their property, and I mean they have multiple different ways they get you in other states, but it doesn't mean that we have the right system. And I don't get. Do you get this whole New Hampshire advantage? I don't get it. I think it's a lie because it's based on New Hampshire advantage is about the beauty and about the character of this state and the people that live in it. It's not about a pledge. And if that's what this is about, then that party and anyone who joins that pledge is wrong in what they're thinking. Because our advantage is who we are as people and the beauty of the land that we live in. That is our advantage. And quality of life. But we have to be careful with that because even that, there's other places that have quality of life. If you want to, I know it's hard to believe, but there is. There's other people that have beautiful main streets.
Yeah. Well, when they say the New Hampshire advantage, once again, the rooms and meals tax is a perfect example that's built on a house of cards.
Yeah.
It's fake. It's not real.
Yeah.
When they talk about the New Hampshire advantage, it's like, yeah, basically it's New Hampshire takes advantage is what it should be. They take advantage of the cities and towns.
Right.
You can't have a fake economy. You can't have you can't say, as the governor said, we have a $200 million surplus because you really don't. Mm-hmm. It's really it's a fake on a house of cards surplus because if you give I'll tell you when they have a surplus, Chris, is when they give the cities and towns back the revenues that they owe them. If you give the cities and towns back their 40%, if you take care of Medicaid, if you take everything that you owe the cities and towns and you get a surplus, that's a surplus. But until you do that, and until the state government comes through with the responsibilities that they're supposed to do the cities and towns, then they don't have a surplus. It's amazing, and that's why one of the reasons I wrote this letter again, they're getting away with it. And they're not even held accountable. Then Sununu just sits up there and gloats he has a $200 million budget. And people just go, okay. It's like, no, it's not okay. So, yeah, when Sununu goes up there and babbles this, New Hampshire advantage, I'm like, whose advantage is that? Talk to cities and towns that are struggling with property taxes.
Yeah.
So, I call BS. And to your credit, Chris, because you brought the subject up with me, several weeks ago, it's time that we do more than babble about politics. It's like it's time to step in the mud and get it done. So. We'll see, but
well,
I know the county's going to be on board.
And I know that I'm hoping that tomorrow people don't get so anxious just to move on and have their voice heard, because this has to be a more thoughtful conversation.
Oh yeah.
And if it's through the city, or if it's that you look to partner with the county, whatever it may be, we need to.
That's coming there, buddy.
Yeah, but we need to not just, all right, well, we did our due diligence. We brought this up. Check it off. No, because I think we're missing the point.
Yeah.
This has got to be something, and it's not about the meals and room tax per se. It's about the responsibility of the state to fund on the levels they need to.
But they're supposed
to. Stop saying that you're right. I mean, you're 100% right, and I think you're spot on about the whole Sununu and the ability to. He talks about a surplus, but in reality, it's a burden surplus to the counties or the towns and the cities and the counties and the school districts because you're not funding on the levels that you should be in the first place to us.
Absolutely.
And people can argue the other side, when I say the other side, I'm not really saying party. I'm just saying whoever's going to say the other side. Wherever the party falls, I don't really care because I've heard it from both Republican and Democrats, more Republicans than Democrats. But the other side will say, well, look at the other places that have that just hasn't driven this down. How do we know? I mean, we're New Hampshire first and foremost. We do things completely different up here. We do hold people accountable.
That's right.
And so, I mean, if we want to put something in place with some strings attached to it, then we need to follow through with that and make that happen.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, it's a start.
Yeah.
Like I said, fortunately, we do have, Jay Conn is our senator, because Jay's not one to shrivel away when the bright lights come on. Jay's a senator that will take it on. Unfortunately, hasn't always been that way. As soon as you tell Concord you owe us some money, they have a tendency to go, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, checks in the mail.
Yeah, checks in the mail. We'll get back to you in about a
yeah, well, we want our money now.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I did some research on the rooms and meals, and it was in 2001, it was 82-18.
Yeah.
82% to 18%. So that's the lowest they got. And they said, the legislature said, okay, we'll catch up. But as you said, 2 years go by and a new legislature gets sworn in, and it kind of unravels and goes backwards.
Yeah.
So, we need to just say, you know what, within whatever, maybe you can't get it up to 40% in 1 year, but there's no reason that you can't get it to 40% in 2 years. And then if you've got a shortfall, you're going to find some revenues, guys and ladies.
It's like when you hear about Social Security is running out at a certain time, depending on who you're talking to. There's different times when it's going to run out.
Yep.
And people need to remember that if it runs out, was it ever rated? Was monies ever rated by the federal government where they took money out of that to, fit their needs at the time?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then let's start making ourselves heard. And I hope now that we have two so far, and I don't know if there's going to be a third, but two mayoral candidates, I hope that both of them are willing to address the issue straight up with whoever's in office. It could be, we had a run of Lynch and Maggie and we had Shaheen, we had Benson in the middle there for a bit. Yeah. I like a term. And so let's make everyone accountable and heard. And when we have an opportunity with our state elected officials, whether it's Governor Sununu or our federal, if it's Senator Sheen, Hassan, or Congresswoman Custer, whoever it may be. Andrew Valinsky is advocating around school costs and how they're not meeting the adequate needs and catastrophic aid needs. And so let's start making people accountable. And when they say certain things, push back a little bit on this. I know with the ever-present and ever never-ending barrage of breaking news and the president and his tweeting and all this other stuff, that it can be overwhelming. But we as a body, Republicans or Democrats or Republicans, it doesn't matter. We need to keep an eye on what it is for our community first and foremost.
Yep.
And if it means you have to go up against one of your elected officials, I remember when we had the income tax ready to be passed, and Senator Shaheen, or was governor then, vetoed it, and we would have passed it. I remember that, and I don't know if she vetoed that or did she veto putting it out there for, I don't know if you had, I can't remember. I don't know if that was one where the public as a whole had to vote on it, but it had to pass the House to get to that point. But the bottom line for me is that we need to make sure people understand in the moment this is what they're saying. Right.
Yeah. Whatever. Especially this year. I mean, this will be an issue that I'm going to, stick with. I'm not going to. As you mentioned, Chris, there's plenty of other issues also where the state's falling short with us. But I really want to take this one and hold people accountable because whenever, well, if there's a gubernatorial candidate out there, or even a mayoral candidate, I want to ask people, if you're mayor, are you going to put the pressure on the governor and the legislature to get us our 40% rooms and meals back? I get that, sometimes you say, well, city council is nonpartisan, and it is, but if you're mayor, what are you going to do to go get our 40% back? What are you going to do to get Medicaid money back? What are you going to do on the retirement fund that we've been shorted on?
Right.
As mayor, are you going to put political pressure on, Concord, or are you just going to just sit back and status quo, which is not an option. Status quo is not an option. Like you said, the New Hampshire advantage, it's just rhetoric.
Right. And as a community, we have to balance all this conversation with the exciting things that are happening in the city.
Yep.
The arts and culture corridor.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good segue into
I
that.
think
it's on the front page of today's Sentinel somewhere.
Oh, it's right here, I think.
Yep.
No, I have the sports page.
Yeah, wherever it went. I only got.
Yeah, where did it go?
I don't know. Somebody stole the front page.
No, it's right here.
Yeah.
But this to me is really, it could be something that really
Speaking about
is
revenues. What can we do locally to bring in revenues?
well, and it just, I don't know.
Tourism helps bring in revenues.
It was some years ago. Now, I mean, I think it's going to be 2 years this September that my daughter got married, and about 6 months before that.
That was revenues going the other way.
Yeah, that was but that's another.
That's another story.
But I had gone down to Boston, and with her when she was going to get her hair all prettied up for a trial run, and we went into this building, and I've said this story probably 100 times now, even back then, and I was just taken back by this building had been transformed into a arts center kind of. It was 6 floors, and every floor had glass doors in the front. But it was an old building, but glass doors in the front so that you could look in and see the art that was going on in there. And they had everything. They thought of everything from architects to hairdressers to they had lawn maintenance people, they had photographers, they had musicians, they had you name it was going on in there. And I always thought that was one of the coolest things that they could have. And I remember talking to people back then in the city and in Jack too, Dugan, and said, this would be so cool. So I'm just excited that this is happening because I think this is going to just add to the vibrancy of the city, and you're adding an area, a covered area, to have performances, and 1,500, maybe 2,000, depending on what the outcome is there. It looks like you may have some rail carts if they can have, where you could have some different types of things on the rail carts down there. They can't move, but they'll be like little restaurants maybe, or whatever.
Jack Dugan was mentioning that they've actually been looking for an engine.
Yeah.
You might put, some rails down there, to put the engine on. And he mentioned that and it's a really neat sounding proposal. Like you'd have a train down there.
Yeah.
5, 6 cars or whatever with the engine. But he mentioned one of the rail cars would be a restaurant.
Yeah.
One of them might be an open cart
where you can have performances.
Performances. Have a band up there playing. There might be one that's a couple of them that have beds inside as like an overnight bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
And then you eat in the rail car at that restaurant.
Yeah.
So, I went to the presentation the other morning, and it was, and you've been to a lot of presentations too, Chris. When you leave, you're just like, that was boring. And this one wasn't. This one was really. This is real.
Yeah.
It's not one of these pie in the sky, see in 20 years.
Jack's presentation there, like I met with him in his office, and he got everything out, and he was showing me everything that they're trying. He's like a kid in a candy shop because
he's psyched.
He's really excited about this opportunity.
Yeah.
And if anybody in this community can get this type of work done, it's Jack Dugan.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, he can get this project done.
Well, there's a guy that knows where revenues are.
Yeah, but it just adds to, especially it supports Keene State and their mission and what they're trying to do, because a parent comes in, they think, this is a really cool community. Yeah. It brings a level of funkiness that for the younger crowd that they could take advantage of. The skateboard park is going to be real. It'll be moved and it'll be real.
Oh yeah, what you see there now, and like you mentioned, that'll be bulldozed. That's just going to be gone.
And I had a conversation with Jack yesterday about I'm on a board of a local nonprofit that could, could we, be fit into this too on some levels with others joining us on this, and so it's just an exciting time.
In our downtown events that we have, a lot of times we've closed off downtown, and honestly, that gets more and more difficult with security reasons and the costs. And the way Gilboa Ave will be set up, from Main Street to School Street, that'll be turned into a pedestrian walk.
Yeah.
It won't be. And how cool is that? So if you have things like we have Pumpkin Fest on Sundays now,
Yeah.
once a year. It's lower scale than it used to be. What a perfect spot for it.
Yeah.
You pull it off Main Street, you put it right there. You have the rail cart, like we just mentioned. You have the non-profit. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm hoping, and we have a pretty progressive city council. I'm hoping we can get this done sooner than later.
And I think, and why they're doing it, and I've said this now multiple times to you and others, if you're going to do the downtown and you're going to do this project and you're going to tear up downtown, do it one time.
Yep.
But be ready to go, be shovel ready when it's time to just go in and just do what you need to do so that when you're done, it's not just this new corridor. It's all of downtown has been upgraded. And I just think that it will bring a level of excitement, to the city for this. So.
Yep, and and the presentation was great. I mean, Jack's the guy does his homework.
Yeah.
He comes in, he has most of the answers.
Yeah.
And I think that project is going to be, because as I mentioned, we were up in Burlington, Vermont, because my son's going to be working up there for the Attorney General's office this summer, and so we just took a ride up to check it out.
Is he still going to school?
He's working and going to school. He'll do both those for the rest of his life.
Is he going to be like this guy that goes to school for he's going to be 90 and he's still going to school?
Probably.
I mean, he's been going to school forever. I think he really enjoys it.
Oh, he does. He's
the stimulation of the classroom, the discussions.
Yeah, he does. Well,
the challenge.
Yeah, he goes to school, but he also teaches.
Yeah.
He teaches online classes at River Valley.
Yeah.
He helps teach at UNH Law, where he's going now, but he's already got his law degree.
Yeah.
So
he just didn't like the one he had, so he's going back for
he
a
learns
second
it. He'll always be. But to his credit, he's never content where he's at. He always wants to learn more.
Yeah.
Actually, he got hired by the Vermont Attorney General's office to prosecute the opiate situation. He's gonna be one of the prosecutors for them this summer. So that's why they brought him up there. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, okay. So he's joining the team that's doing the lawsuit from Vermont.
Yep, for Vermont.
Okay.
Yep. And then he'll do that. He'll be working for them all summer on that, and then he'll come back next year, or at the end of this September, go back to UNH Law in Concord, go back and work for the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office in New Hampshire while he finishes up this last leg of UNH Law.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he's president of his class also. So, yeah. And,
good for him.
but he's making money while he does it. That's all that really counts. Well, I guess more than that counts, but he's making money.
He's doing what he wants to do, though.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Yep, he is. So he stayed pretty active in politics and in business and in law.
So what did Jack say next steps? What's the timeline that they're looking for?
Tomorrow. Honestly, I only say that half jokingly. They want to get rolling now. They want the city to look at this. It's like this is one of these pie in the sky things. I think they said they were hoping to get a shovel in the ground, next year. Mm-hmm. And so obviously there's going to be a little bit of work to do, but I don't see any reason why we can't. I've been involved in situations, and you remember this, Chris, when we originally thought we'd have an ice arena downtown. Mm-hmm. When we went through that process, and it was a long, drawn-out process, and we were there. And it collapsed. Yeah. And I don't want this happening with this one. This is viable.
Oh, ballpark too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is very viable, and it's exciting. Well, getting back to what I mentioned to being up in Burlington, they have an area, up there in Burlington.
Church Street?
Church Street.
Yeah.
Exactly. Most of the streets run this way towards the water, and Church Street runs this way. So it's a walking street with the bars, restaurants, eateries, gift shops, all kinds of things. Phenomenal. And one thing I noticed about Burlington too, it's got a really good vibe, and they hang on to the young people, and that's what we need in Keene. It can't be everybody just my age, because I'm in my late 20s now, as you know, and very late 20s.
Okay, let's keep going. You're lying again.
We need young people to stay. Young people are graduating, and just leaving.
And when we say young, to me, it's young.
And young at heart.
And young families, too. I mean,
Yes.
it can be, I mean, millennials, yes, but young families, which may be still millennials, but it can be a variety. It can be 21, 22 to 30, 40s, you know.
Yep.
I mean, we're looking for everything across the board, especially if you are looking to work, because you can get a job here easily. You can come up here and earn a decent wage.
Yep.
And your significant other, if you have one, can also without an issue.
Yep. And that's what we need. You know, we need to have that vibe. And when I brought up the whole thing, and I'll only talk this for about a second, when I brought up the thing about food trucks and some of the pushback was, well, we don't want them to be open late at night. It'll make too much noise. We got to get rid of that mentality. You know, it's like, you know, if you're downtown and you're downtown has a tendency to be a little bit noisier than other parts of the region. You know, and you know, same thing with this on, you know, downtown. It's just, there's a third economy in Keene. There's a day, there's the night, and there's a late night. And we need to realize that. That's where you go up to Burlington, and you know, a good chunk of their economy starts at 10 p.m.
Yeah. Hey, is it true that the Asian restaurant that's by City Hall is changed management already?
I've heard a few things.
I've heard the same thing that
I've heard they've had a pretty big turnover.
Yeah,
you know,
and that the person that actually had the place down on Route 101 she's not any longer running it. But I don't know if that's factually correct or not. But if anybody
I don't know who's running
call
it.
me on Saturday to the radio station so I know.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've heard there's been a.
But I was asking you as a city councilor.
I don't know if the person, because remember the person that owns it, wasn't the person that had the food truck.
So the person that's on the contract is not
still
the person that had the food truck.
That is correct.
Okay.
The person that actually owns it is the lady that owns a lot of businesses over in Marlboro.
Yeah, she's doing. I mean, I applaud her.
She owns it.
I applaud her for all the things that she's done over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really made that town. It's made it interesting to go through. I mean, it was a town that was struggling, and to have somebody come in and just spend at the gas station and turn it into a hardware store and the beer place and the other things. And I think it's attracted other people to do other things that she's had nothing to do with.
Right.
So that's good.
You know, it's just like downtown Keene. You get successful people going.
Yeah.
And I see the old, speaking of that, downtown, one of our big retail spots is going to get filled. And
Ingenuity?
The old Ingenuity Country Store. It's
New
going to
Hampshire
be
Craftsman?
Yep.
Yeah.
Going to be kind of an upscale arts.
It's going to be
project. Hopefully
they're going to be.
well.
My understanding is they're going to be. It's things that are in there are going to be able to be purchased.
Yep.
So it's going to be similar on some levels to Hannah Grimes' store downtown,
Yeah.
but probably on a bigger scale and more artsy on some levels too.
More artsy.
So I mean, I applaud that. That's going to be some place that people want to go into and take a look at.
Yep.
You know, with what Dory's doing, you know, she's putting in American Grill there, which I think isn't a bad thing. You know, right there to put that in. It's a little different than, I mean, you've got Luca's, you've got, you've got fine dining on some levels, and then you're going to have the American Grill thing that's going to be more like I said to Dory, I said, it's going to be like a Lab and Lager, but up in this end, like where you can go in and get the burger, but you can also get the onion rings. You know, that kind of food, or you can get a good wrap, or you can get, and they may have some real dinner specials too at the same time. And then she said, yeah. So I'm excited for that. I don't understand though why the city came out with the whole light. You know how they had the lights,
I heard about that.
and that they made a new rule this year. Last year they put the lights up high and it looked nice, inviting. And this year they changed the rules, so now they have to be down low.
Yeah, I got to be checking on that with.
It's just like sometimes we think too hard on things.
I know. I think it had to do more with if you couldn't have like an extension cord like coming out a window and going across.
Well, I think last time they had it like plugged into like a street light or something somehow, but that was because they didn't have the box that's there now.
So I got to look into that because I heard that the stage couldn't put theirs out because of wherever it plugs in. So I know.
It's just
I
like
know it's frustrating.
I mean, and everybody says that that Keene is is changed its way, and it's friendly and stuff. But these little things,
I know.
these little things that you guys find yourself in sometimes,
I
just
know.
take away from all the magic that's going on in this city. There's a lot of
know.
excitement. There's a lot of good things going. Do we have our struggles? Every city has their struggles, but the bottom line for me is that you're moving in the right direction, and that's exciting.
You don't want to keep taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You want to take 3 steps forward.
Yeah.
You don't want to keep, and I'm aware of that. That came through city staff. It wasn't a city council issue.
Yeah.
But I heard about it, and I heard about it from the stage also, that they couldn't put the lights out because of where they were plugged in. So
Yeah.
I'm on it.
And then you have the apartment complex that's coming in.
Yeah, it's getting there.
That's massive. What is that? 130. Oh man, what is it? 137 units.
Yeah, it's on there. Yeah, about that. This is going to be interesting.
135.
Yeah, because it's going to be interesting to see how many fill. I mean, where the people are going to come from, where they're going to move out of to move there. That's a
Yeah.
And then then next year we'll be looking at the the Colony Mill.
Yeah.
Putting people in. So.
I mean, they're very nice apartments from what he was describing. Very nice apartments. I don't, one parking space per unit,
That's a
which is probably going to be problematic. Which they understand that may be problematic, and then they may have to address it with off-site parking somehow down the road. I get that too, but I also where they're starting for rent was I don't know, I don't pretend to know, but I thought, wow, that's going to be a certain audience that they're looking at, So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But I'll tell you, if ever, I'd like to tour it at some point.
Yeah.
Because it just looks like they've really done it. The insides are really nice. They have an area in if you went to Keene Middle School, the gym, how it went down, but they have a whole area for people to use for a gym, and so that they can stay on, and that's free. So they don't have to join a gym. They can socially get together there. Yeah. I think they're going to have. They're hoping. I know he said something yesterday in a meeting I was in around having like one-stop type food stuff that people can pick up if they just don't have the time to cook. And so, it's like you can live right there. It's convenient. It doesn't include the electricity, so I don't know with heat pumps that they're going to be using how that's going to factor in. I think I'd probably buy something on the 4th floor then, because doesn't heat go up?
That's what they say.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no. So that's going to be interesting. And as far as projects go, as you saw, Burger King's underway, which it's one of those issues that people always ask about. Home Goods, the old Shaw's, that's underway.
Is it underway? Because
it's been underway. No, they're cranking right now.
Is it 2 stores or is it 1 store? Isn't it? I thought it was 2. It was
3.
Home Good, 3 stores.
Yeah.
I wonder who the Home Goods would pull away from. Pier 1.
Probably a little bit of everybody, TJ Maxx,
and their
Walmart,
little back,
who's right next door. I mean, or maybe the whole goal of that is also to bring people in from the community around us.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know how the Koto place stays. I never see it busy.
They've been there for a while.
I could be wrong, but
the Japanese steakhouse. Yeah, they managed to keep cranking. The hotel on Key Road finally is coming to fruition.
Yeah, it's getting wrapped up.
Yep.
I mean, not that it's near completion, but it's getting like
the insulation's
on the side, so it's like actually looking like a building now.
It's amazing because you'd think there wouldn't be that demand for that many hotel rooms in Keene.
Yeah.
But there is. Yeah. A lot of times in Keene, you can't get a hotel room on a weekend.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's like, where are all these people coming from? And one thing they talked about when we had that meeting the other day with Jack Dugan, interesting because they had representatives from Keene Ice there talking about it and how their business is just going through the roof. How much busier they are.
Right.
And they're going to be putting the ice back down here in about another month. They go a couple months, have a couple home shows.
Right.
So.
Yep, they did, didn't they?
Keene Ice. And then, speaking of Keene Ice and speaking of Marlborough Street, Chris, as we got a few more minutes left here, one of the issues that will be on the table tomorrow night, or if you're watching this, it could have been last week, whatever. Kingsbury property. It's.
I don't understand. What did you guys do?
Nothing yet.
No, but what did you do? I mean, there was an article in the paper, and I wasn't clear. They pulled it off the table?
Yeah, basically what it was tabled, for lack of a better term, just kind of on more time. It's just sitting there kind of dormant.
Yeah.
Okay. The owner had made promises. Some he hasn't kept. And basically what we did is like, okay, it pulls it back up to go to the committee to discuss where we're at. Rather than just sitting dormant, it's like, okay, where are we at? Do we need to apply more pressure? Do we take it for tax deed? Do we say everything's fine? Do we say we need more of a commitment out of you? It's basically bringing it back up, take a look at it, and see where we want to go with it.
Are you guys in a tough spot that, I mean, he owes anywhere between $750,000 and $900,000 depending on who you talk to. So you tell me.
Just say it's close to $1 million.
All right. So, and he's saying that he'll give $100,000 and change or whatever it is.
It's kind of like.
So okay. So, but if you take that, are you entering into? Does that stop a clock that's running on one side, and allow him now to have more time? Like, can you? If he still owes all that, are you guys setting yourself up so you can't take the property at some point if you take this $100,000? I mean, this guy. I mean, I don't understand. He owes this. It's grown over time. He owes what he owes. He knew when he bought the property that the back taxes were included, and because of all this, it's going to be years before anything can be actually thought about and looked at down in that property. So you're missing, opportunities. When we're landlocked on some levels, we don't have a lot of space in the city to do some of these projects.
This particular case is extremely frustrating. Without getting into detail, the owner has not been forthright.
Yeah.
It's just always, checks in the mail. Oh, I didn't send it. Oh, it'll be there. It's just constant. This has gone through 3 city managers now.
Yeah.
And every time a new city manager comes in, it's like the story starts all over again.
Right.
And for some of us, for new counselors, they get there and they're like, oh, what's going on? For some of us that have been around for a while, it's like, again, really, we got to hear the story again. We have to hear the excuses again. At some point, it's either going to be he's going to come through or it's going to get yanked. Mm-hmm. It just can't go on forever like this. The buildings virtually, to the point where it's going to have to get bulldozed because now the structure is unsafe. So, now you're running into another level. If somebody's in there, and we're aware that people use the building for various reasons, and the police can only monitor it as much as they can, but it's a big building. Somebody gets hurt in there, or the building collapses, who's responsible? It's a mess. Yeah. There's no question. The Kingsbury property issue is a mess.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, nobody's going to be happy. Nobody's going to come out and say, well, that was a great way to handle it. It's just not going to end that way.
Right.
No matter how it ends with the city council, it's just not going to be one of those things where people are going to say, well, that went well.
Yeah.
Because it's just not going to go well. No matter which way we go, it's either going to get dragged out to the point where it's not going well, or the city goes and yanks it, and that doesn't really go well either because now you're on the hook. But there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. Don't expect a really good resolution anytime soon. It's just not going to happen.
What's interesting is we had the opportunity, both you and I, to hear Amy Klobuchar, Senator Klobuchar, speak at the Democratic dinner the other day. And she was great. And I've heard multiple candidates now speak. Mm-hmm. And they're all talking about how to move the country forward. They're not talking about each other. They're not trying to take this wind out of the sails of one another. They're talking about their vision for America on so many fronts.
Yep.
And I thought she was
positive to hear.
She's another one that has a great story to be told.
Yeah. I saw Mayor Pete the other night in Claremont.
Yeah.
At his town hall meeting with Fox.
And he's just doing extremely well. Yeah.
Good to hear somebody intelligent that has a vocabulary with more than 2-syllable words.
Yeah. I mean, he's thoughtful. So, but we do have to go.
Guess what?
So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
We're just getting started. They're throwing us out of here. See everybody in a couple of weeks. Thank you very much.